Alright, welcome back folks to the last video of XML with MSXML 6.dll, a video course by Alexander Morose. And in this last video you will learn how to manage XML data, how to edit the existed nodes in XML data, how to change its values as well as rename those nodes, and how to delete the nodes in XML data using the codes and MSXML 6.dll, as well as I go ahead and decided to show you how to format the XML document. When we created the XML document with our code, I decided to go ahead and show you how to format the XML document, so the new nodes will appear on new lines and it's going to be in better organized form, so it's easy to read. Let me go ahead and show you how I did it. So pretty much it's my solution to that, but if you have and if you know the solution how to use the MSXML 6.dll, maybe internal functions on the document formatting, go ahead please and put it in the comments. It will be very appreciable if you will do so. But all what I did, I just used the basically text formatting functions that included in Visual Basic. So let me show it to you. What I did, I just says that when we start creating the text, the XML data from scratch, I set the text1.text, so basically our text box equal to nothing, and then we already know that in XML MSXML 6.dll comments creating automatically the new line, so I'm not going to touch that. But then when I create the root node document in my XML data, after this I put the comments for you, set a new line for a next XML data that comes after this node, which is visual interface node, as you remember. And what I did, here's the logic how I implement this solution. I set the text1.text, so our text box equal text1.text, so we're going to include the text before that we loaded, which is going to be our basically comments. And what I did, I just load this text1.text equal XML comments.xml, so it's .xml method, so it's just going to load the XML node of that comment. Then so it's loading, plus add to it the visual interface node, and as you can see I specified as a string, so it's basically hard-coded. Why? Because as you know, when you're creating the first root node using the MSXML 6.dll library, what it does, it just basically closing that node automatically. And if we will create a new line after this, what we will have, if we basically will put, instead of hard coding the name of the node, if we will put, let's say, XML root node like so, and .xml, what it will do, it basically will open and close the visual interface node, and that's what we don't want, because we want to have some subchild nodes and its values inside of that root node. So that's why I create the first root node hard-coded. You can pass it as a string, you can pass it in a variable string, and says, instead of writing visual interface node like so, maybe you can just specify it as a variable and then call that variable, because we basically going to use this two times, when we opening the XML in our XML data root node, and we will be closing root node in the end. As you already know by watching previous tutorials, that XML files or XML data only have one root node. This is the rule. So then what I did, you already know this code because by watching the previous tutorials. If you didn't watch the previous tutorials, go ahead and rewind and watch the previous video tutorials when I will show you how to create the XML data from scratch using the Windows programming environment. So here we go, and initialize and create. So we initialize the application name node, and then what I did, just because we create here the new line, so this node will appear on a new line, and we set as again same logic, text1.text equal the text in the text box, and then I set and add to it the application name node and XML. So basically it will grab the whole XML data of that application name node with its values, and then create again the new line for the next node, because we have the next node is coming. And I did the same thing for the open XML button XML node, the same thing, the same logic, text1.text equal again text1 text box, the already text existed in that text box, and I add to it the XML open XML button.xml method, which means that it will add the open XML button node with its XML data. So it will show us the XML, the whole XML data, such as XML node of the open XML button plus its values. And then is again I create a new line over here. And so I did this for the all nodes, except when I got to the to my label 1 node. You remember that label 1 node, when we create it, has some subchild nodes inside of that. So here it gets a little bit tricky, but pretty simple as well. So over here, before the label 1 node, before I'm creating it in my XML data, I said that, you know, the new line, and it's going to be our comments before it. I said the new line, and then I said that create the label 1 node, and I didn't specify this logic to create a new line and write it to the text box. Why? Because we know that if we will do so, it will just close the label 1 node automatically, because when we create in the label 1 node here, it's closing it automatically, and then it's inserting inside of that node the font color subchild node with its value, and then it's inserting the text node, subchild text node in the label 1 node. So those two nodes is a subchild we're inserting, and after the last node I specify my logic to set the new line. So I said the text1.text equal text1.text. So the information that was in the text box before the label 1 node plus the label 1 node XML. So basically it will grab the whole XML of that label 1 node, which will have, that XML data will have that label 1 node plus the subchild nodes inside of that node and its values. That's what it did. And then I create a new line. So as we know, after we creating our last subchild node, which is text, which goes inside of the label 1 node, after that point the MSXML 6.dll library just closing the label 1 node. So we're done. So now we would like to grab that node, label 1.xml, and then set it in our text box, and then create a new line. The next thing what we're gonna do, we're just going to create the description node again and on a new line, and in the end of the description node created, I said the same logic. I said insert in the text box the information that was in the text box plus the description node XML data and the new line, and then in the end is again I finished and closed the tags for my root node, and I did it hard-coded. That's my solution. Otherwise, if you know other solutions how to format the XML data using the MSXML 6.dll, please go ahead and type it in the comments below on this video. It will be very useful for the other folks out there who's watching that. to know the other solutions, how to format the XML data using the programming methods. But here we go, and I'm closing my visual interface with a hard-coded string. So what I did again, I set the text box equal what it's already in the text box, and I set plus the string, which is I hard-coded, and I wrote the closing node visual interface. So here we go, we are done. Then, like before, we had the text1.text equal the XML manager.xml.data. I didn't say so. Basically, I just delete that line that we have previously when we created the data, and I said that XML manager.loadXML, the whole loadXML method will load only the XML data from the string, and then I pass as a string my text box, which has already created the XML data node by node that we were creating using these logics. Okay, so basically it's finished the XML data document. Okay, I load it in my XML manager. So basically I reload my XML manager with the organized XML data, and then I just save the data into the file. So with this code right here, line of the code. So let's go ahead and see what we have. I'm going to run it, and command 2. You can see our XML data looks now organized, not like it was in a bunch of lines like it was before. Now we organize it node by node, so it's kind of easy to read this data now. So, and when I'm going to load this into the MSXML 6.dll from a file, it even organized for us even further, like so. So it's nice to have it. So here we go. Here's just a little tip that I probably should put it when we create the XML data from scratch, but I just decided and go ahead and share it with you when we're managing the XML data, and put it before we're going to jump into the managing XML data, such as editing the nodes and its values, and delete the nodes from the existing document. So I just decided and show you how to organize. Spend like 10 minutes and show you how to organize the XML data. Okay, it's probably going to be very valuable for the beginners, but advanced users, sorry about that. You can skip this anytime you want to the pieces exactly that you would like to watch. Okay, let's go ahead and jump to our managing the XML data from the existed XML file or existed XML data. How to manage the data. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just go ahead and create the new button. Okay, and basically it's going to be two buttons. One will be delete the node, and another will be they change the node and its values. Alright, so after I created those two new buttons, let me go ahead and maybe name them. So whatever we will click load XML file, let's go ahead and say that we'd like to name our buttons, and I'm going to say maybe command 3. It's going to be a change, so like so. And you already should know how to read the XML file and XML data. If not, watch the previous videos from this video course. And all what I do, I just editing. You're already familiar with this code, editing the open button, how we open our XML data and file, and set our visual interface with the XML data that was stored in XML file. So I'm not going to spend so much time with this. I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste from our XML file into that. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, so let's go ahead and have a look. Save it. we're gonna load, and here we go. So you will know what is going on, what button we're pressing and stuff. Now let's go ahead and work with the delete node button, and let's go ahead and delete the font color node that is subchild node of label 1 button, and the label 1 button node is a subchild node of visual interface. So let me go ahead and show you. For instance, let's how to delete the font color node. Okay, how to do so. We're going to go ahead and click on command 4 button, because that's the perform the logics for to delete a node from XML data. First thing what we're gonna do, we're gonna set basically we're going to declare initialize XML manager. This is our DOM document, or XML container that stores the whole XML data container. Okay, manager with fresh DOM document. So we're gonna say set. Let me go ahead, give some space. Set XML manager dot. Don't worry about those errors. It's just because I didn't finish the line with the logic, didn't complete it, and just because it's syntax error, it's fine. Set XML manager equal new DOM document. Okay, so I initialize that. Now I'm going to declare and initialize two variables that we are going to use to delete a node from XML data. So why do we need two variables? We need two variables. One variable is a root node, and another variable is going to be its subchild node of that root. That's how MSXML 6.dll works. It's required those two parameters. So what we need to do, we need to dim. You can dim a variable here, or you can dim a variable over here to be more organized like we did before. But let me go ahead and dim it over there, because we are working over here. So, and I already read the comment. So dim delete node delete subchild, delete child, let's say like so. Delete child node as IXML DOM node. You can select like so. You need to basically to declare delete child node as IXML DOM node in this case. Okay, and you can name the variable the way you want it as again. I just gonna go ahead and name it delete child node, and the next thing we're going to initialize it. So set delete child node equal XML manager dot select single node. We would like to select single node from our data, XML data, and then I need to specify it in the parentheses as a string, the name of that node, and it's going to be a font color. So I'm going to put two slashes and say font color. So it's just going to go ahead and find this font color for us, this child node over here inside of the label 1, inside of the visual interface. Then it's going to go inside of the label 1 and find the font color node, without for us to specify that we need to go inside of the label 1 and font color. And for so you need to put double slashes like so. Okay, and then we're gonna dim parent node as XML DOM node. Okay, and we're also going to initialize it. So set parent node equal XML manager dot select single node and double slashes, and I'm going to say that it's going to be label 1, because label 1 is our parent node, and inside of the label 1 we have a child, which is font color node and its values. So just did so. Next, so as again, why are we putting the 2 slashes? Well, basically it let our DOM document go and search for the first records of node that we specify in the entire XML data. So we don't have to specify exactly where and which node it's located. If you do have multiple labels 1 node, you need to go ahead and click XML manager dot select nodes instead of select node, and what it will do, it will select all of them starting from the first in XML data and select all of the label 1 nodes if you have multiple. In this case I have only 1, and I would like to select 1, and how to select the multiple we are going to talk later in this video. So label 1, and I'm going to say that the next thing it's going to be, I'm going to say remove the font color node and its values and subnodes from XML data. And here's the logic. I'm going to say parent node, because I need to use the parent node dot using the method remove child, and then I need to specify what without the parentheses, because if you will set the parentheses like it's asking you, it's not going to work with the Visual Basic 6 syntax. So without the parentheses for Visual Basic 6, I need to, if you're working with different languages, it might be a parenthesis or it might be not a parenthesis. I need to go ahead and say delete child node, because as you can see, you need to specify a child node inside of the root node what you would like to delete. So it's going to be our delete child node, like so, and that's it. And then let me go ahead and print the message box for us to let us know that delete child node and was removed successfully. So it will let us know that it's performed the job correctly. Let's have a look. Let's save it and have a look. So first thing what I'm gonna do, I'm loading the XML data into, okay, here's the problem. We initialize the XML manager, but we didn't load any data in that XML manager, and we're working with the data. So let's go ahead and load XML data from our text1 box. So I'm going to say that XML manager dot text, actually dot XML, because I need to load the XML data, but not dot XML. You would say dot XML, but dot XML only read values. So you need to use method dot load XML instead. Okay, and I need to specify the string. So the string will be text box string that is inside of the text box. The whole XML data that we are going to load Okay, and then after I'm going to remove it and bring the message, I would like to say the text box 1.text updated, and update it with the new XML manager.xml. In this case we're using the XML method because XML is read-only values, and it's getting and pulling all the XML data from the XML manager DOM document or XML container. Okay, now it's going to work. First we're going to load XML data into our text1 box, because we're working with this text1 box when we're going to click delete node button. And then when we're gonna go ahead and click delete node button, we should delete the font color node and its values inside of it, such as values or subnodes. So basically we're going to get rid of this, the whole node and its values and subnodes inside of it, when we're going to go ahead and press delete node button. Let's go ahead and do that. We clicked on that, and here's an error. Let's have a look at the error. Of course, it says that message box cannot work with the delete child node object as an IXML DOM document node class. Why? Because we need to say XML. So it's just going to go ahead and bring us its XML, or we need to specify as text. So basically it's going to bring any strings, because message box class function only works with a string inside of it. So now it's going to be perfect, should be. Okay, here we go. It tells us we said .xml, so we bring what inside of that font color node, and the whole XML. Here's the whole XML for the font color, and then it says was removed successful. So if we're going to click button OK, it should remove our font node completely. Have a look, and it did. Doesn't have it anymore in the label 1 node. Okay, let's load it again. You can see I loaded from the XML file. We have the font color, and when I'm going to click delete node, it disappears. Okay, so you just learned how to go ahead and pick any of the nodes in XML documents, and it can be node, subchild node, of subchild, whatever, and you just learn how to delete it, that node from the XML data. Pretty simple. First you need to create the parent, initialize it and declare it, the parent XML DOM node that is going to store the parent XML data. Then you need to declare and initialize the XML DOM node, the child of the parent node that we would like to delete. So those two, and after you're gonna declare and initialize those two nodes, then you need to set the parameters into the child and set the parameters into the parent. So we will know by initializing it which node in XML data will be parent and which will be of its child node, and then using the parent, calling the parent node and using its method remove child, then specifying the subchild for that parent node that we initialized earlier, and it's going to delete it, okay, from the entire XML document. So you just learned how to delete the node from the existed document, or from the existed XML file, or from the existed XML data. And now what you can do, you can go ahead and save it, save this data, XML manager.save, and name the file destination for the XML. You can name it as a different XML file, or you can name it as the same XML file. So it's just going to go ahead and update that old XML file with the new values. It's up to you, but you need to use the whole XML manager DOM document variable, and then method save and then put the destination like we did before when we created the XML file. If you don't remember, go ahead and watch that video again. I'm going to explain to you that save method and how to save the XML file from scratch in that video. Okay, so the next thing what we're gonna do now, we're just going to go ahead and now learn how to change the XML node name or its XML node values. And we're going to go ahead and click on command 3 button, which is our change XML node button, and we're gonna write perform logic to will change node name and its values. So how to do so? Pretty simple. First, as again, we need to initialize the XML manager. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy that line. Then you need to load the XML manager with the XML data. You can load it from the file or you can load it from the text box. I'm going to go ahead and load it from the text box in this case. So I'm just going to load the XML data, but you can load the XML file and then load the XML data from that file. And how to do so, just watch the previous video on open XML file and load XML data. It's in this video course, but it's previous videos. I talked about it in a detailed matter. Okay, we'll load it, and then the next thing what we're gonna do, we're going to create the new and the old nodes. We're going to create and declare and initialize create, basically declare, initialize, create, and create a new and old nodes, a new node with new name, an old node that we would like to replace with new name, with new node. Okay, so pretty simple. Dim new node as XML DOM document. DOM node. Then set, now we're initializing, set new node equal to XML manager. First we need to name it, and to do so with a create element, as you remember that. If you would like to create a simple node. If you would like to create a complex node, you need to use create node button. And to watch more details on that, go ahead and watch the previous video on how to create XML data from scratch. It's going to be a part of this video course, and I'm going to talk about it in details if you didn't watch it already. Okay, so name, let's say I would like to say, instead of font color, I want to say just the font, just the color. Okay, then you need to declare old node as XML DOM document, XML DOM node, I'm sorry. And basically it's not necessary that you should just name it old node variable. You can name this variable the way you want it, as well as you can name the new node variable the way you want to name them. Well, I'm naming them like so just because it's easier for me to keep going, and I already know what variable we're talking about and what variable this is set to. Set old node equal XML manager dot and we need to go ahead and find that node. So I'm going to say select single node, and I'm going to say that double slashes, and just go ahead and select the single node, the first one from our XML data, if we have only one. If you have more than one, it's going to be tricky, and you don't have to use the select single node method, and we will talk about it in a second. But first, let's learn how to change the single node. So single node, and it's going to be a font color. Okay, it's already old node that already in our document or XML data, and then I'm going to just go ahead renamed the node and its values. Let change, let's say, rename the node and change its values. So I'm going to say that XML manager dot replace child and first I need to specify the child. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna say XML manager and select the parent first. You can use it like this, select XML manager, select single node, and this is our parent, and I'm going to say label 1, and then you can do it like so, and then replace the child in that parent node, label 1, and it's asking me new child, which is our new node as XML DOM node. So we already initialize it and create it over here. Don't worry about that syntax error over here. Then space and old child, which is going to be our old node that we also created over here, and initialize it. So we're gonna go ahead and do so, and I'm just going to say replace or something, replace equal, like so. And let's go ahead and have a look. We're loading first the data in the text box because we're working with the text box, and then change node, and it says that, of course, we gotta do it differently. We cannot sell it like so. So we need to create actually one more node. Let's go ahead and create one more node, which is going to be our parent node. And to do so, we are going to create basically a parent node for those subchilds, and let's just call it child instead of new node, so we will know exactly what's going on. Child new node and child old node. Here we go. Now we need to create a third node because it's required, which is parent node, that will be parent for those child nodes. So the parent node as XML DOM document, DOM node, like so, and then set it parent node to XML manager, our DOM document dot select. We need to select that parent node, tell it which node will be a parent for those childs, and it's going to be label 1, because if you're going to look at our XML document, label 1 will be parent node for the font color node and everything what is inside of it. So let me stop the debugging. Here we go. And now we're going to rename the node, calling the parent node dot replace child method, and then we need to specify new child in parentheses and the old child. The new child will be child new. We already created over here. It's okay, don't worry about the expression syntax. Child node, so I'm just going to copy it, and the old child will be child old node that we have already over here. Okay, so here we go, and parent node, and let's just go ahead and maybe say that without the parentheses. Yeah, it should work without the parentheses in Visual Basic 6. You know, in different languages it depends on its syntax, maybe with the parentheses like it asks us to specify, maybe in C++ or without it, but in Visual Basic 6 it's without the parentheses. Let's go ahead and have a look. Save the progress project. Gonna start the debugging, and I'm going to load the XML data, and now I'm going to change it. As again, by clicking change node button, this font color node, the whole node will be changed to just a color. Let's have a look. I click the button and nothing has happened because we need to refresh. We forgot to refresh our text box after we perform it. So I need to say the text one.text equal new XML manager, or XML manager with the new data, so XML. And I'm going to go ahead and click run button, and let's have a look. Now after clicking on change node name and value, it should change the, actually let's go ahead and put the message for us, and I'm going to say message box. And what I'm gonna do, I'm just going to say that child child old node dot XML, because I wanna specify the XML. Then I need the string in the message box function, and I'm gonna say was successfully replaced with, so basically we're replacing with and then I'm going to add child new node dot XML. I'm just going to go ahead and perform the operation, and then update it. Let's have a look. Load the information, XML data, and then after I'm going to click on that button, the font color will change to color. Basically, we will replace the font color node and its values with the new node, which is going to be a color node. Clicked on it, it says the font color blah blah blah, it's XML file because we specified to show us the XML data, and then we'll successfully replace with the color node. Color node doesn't have any values yet, so that's what it is over here. It's closed without the values. So now what we gotta do, now we can set the values for that color node, which are a new node, and pretty simple. I'm just going to say child new node dot and then text equal, and just type some text, let's say 00FF66 whatever, new color, let's say. Let's have a look. We're going to start debugging, load the XML data, and then change the values. Now it's telling us that it was successfully replaced. I need to put D in the end with color 00FF66 color, and I'm going to click OK, and here we go. It's replaced. So you just learned how to replace or rename the node and its values using the replace child function. So pretty simple. You need to create 3 variables. Our new node, create and initialize it. Okay, then our old node and the parent node that will be parent for those child node, for our child new node and child old node. Okay, and then you need to call our parent node, and using replace child method put our parameters as a child new node in it and child old node, and it will go ahead and do the job. It will replace the node, old child node, with a new child node. Okay, well, we just learned how to do so, how to change or replace the node in existed XML data. Let's go ahead, or XML file. So it's pretty simple. Instead of loading from the text box, you're loading from the file, and you already should know how to do so. If not, just watch the previous video how to open XML file and load the XML data. It's from this video course. Okay, so next what we're going to learn, how to work with multiple nodes. Let's say there is more than one label one node, and how to work with that, how to call the values from that, and pretty much how to display the values from the multiple and how to recognize them. Let's say if we're going to have more than one label one node, we would like to change it at some whatever we want using the code dynamically. That's what we're going to learn, and let's go ahead and move to that.